In Update Fire and Ice, we were introduced to the second nation that is situated as a subtree within a nation, which was Finland. Finland, unlike the first nation that was South Africa, had both a ground forces line and an air forces line. South Africa only had a ground force line and one premium helicopter, the Royvalk. So this got me thinking, which other nations of the world can we represent within the tech trees of other nations? For this video, I will be including nations with the subtrees already and try to introduce a new nation for them. We'll also weigh the benefits of the unique vehicles that the tech tree will bring to this nation. As usual, I'll go through the nation as they are arranged in the hangar with US first and Israel last. The criteria for a country that can be a subtree is 1. Having enough vehicles to constitute a line, and 2. The vehicle should considerably benefit the tech tree's meta. For example, the Finnish vehicles are alright because it gives Sweden a third top tier MBT, the Leopard 2A6, a second 10-0 MBT, the Finnish 2A4, a 9-3 vehicle, a second 8-3 medium tank, and a Gepard analog at 8-3. Never you mind the fact that the ITO-90M is already finished and is practically saving Sweden top tier from being like Israel or Italy. Sure, the Asrad R can do work, but it can't do it as good as the ITO-90M. Before I go to the United States, I really gotta admit, I felt Israel was the most viable candidate as a US subtree because of the overwhelming overlap when it comes to their vehicles. But in the end, they chose to introduce Israel as a standalone tech tree, which, honestly, I can respect, as I believe the devs have put in enough work to justify Israel as a separate tech tree. I mean, if Israel just used the American F-16s as a subtree, we wouldn't have Python 3s now, would we? But the benefit of taking away some redundant Magaks in existing Merkavas would have cut the grind down significantly. That's the upside to having it as a subtree, but either way, I'm still glad that Israel is an independent tech tree in War Thunder. So in my opinion, the best candidate for a subtree in the United States is Egypt. The first justification is that the US was primarily responsible for a bulk of Egypt's military equipment, and that includes upgrading their old Soviet vehicles like the Ramses II tank. Essentially a T-54 with a laser rangefinder, I mean. The D-10T was replaced by the M68 gun. It received an infrared sight for the driver and gunner, night vision for the commander, new road wheels, tracks, transmission, and engine. Basically an overhaul. The only thing that the Ramses II retained was the hull of the T-54 and turret. Aside from that, everything was more or less new. Egypt has an interesting mix of some Italian, British, and Soviet World War II equipment, with the tech tree beginning with the M1340 Italian tank, followed by the Valentine, the Archer, the M4A4, M4A2, PT-76, and the M4A4 FL-10. Yes, that same one in the French tree, but on an M4A4 chassis. Along with this, there's the Centurion Mark III ISU-152 SD-100, which was a Czech SU-100, will join the T-34-85 at rank 4, along with the T-34 with a 122mm howitzer and another one with a 100mm gun. At rank 5, the IS-3, T-54, and BMP-1 will fill the role. And at rank 6, the T-55A, T-62, M60A3, YPR-765, and Ramses II tank can be added. At rank 7, the T-90 can be added since the M1A1 already exists in the US tech tree. Same case with the M60A1 Rice. Maybe when Egypt arrives, it will also be the impetus to introduce much awaited SPAA in the US tech tree like the Avenger, which they also used along with the Chaparral and the Tor M1. For this tech tree, I'm passing on aircraft since they use mostly British aircraft like the Tempest and majority Soviet aircraft with only one unique design, the Hel-1 HA-300, and even then, Since the Hell 1 HA300 was designed by Willy Messerschmitt, it's most likely going to end up in the German tech tree. Speaking of Germany, there are a lot of options that would give them good vehicles, and I've heard countries like Spain, the Netherlands, Switzerland thrown around. And Argentinian tanks are already present in that tech tree. But if a full-fledged sub-tech tree could be introduced, it would most likely be Switzerland. While the early ranks are just the usual mix of Czech, French, and British tanks, the Cold War tanks are where things get interesting. You get the Czech-built Jagdpanzer 38 in Swiss service as the Panzerjäger G13, the Light Panzer 51 or AMX 13, and the first of the few indigenous designs, beginning with the Panzer 58 with the 20-pounder and the upgrade Panzer 61 with the 105mm L7. There is also the Panzer 55, which is the Centurion Mark III, and the Panzer 55 over 57, which is the Centurion Mark III or Mark V hull upgunned with the L7 105mm gun, and the Panzer 57, which is a Mark VII or Mark 12. At rank 6, aside from the Leopard 2A4 and CV9030CH, the MOAG Piranha and MOAG Sharks and all those variants can be added. Some had a 105mm low recoil gun that could fire NATO ammunition, a variant that had the ADATS missile, a 30mm Wildcat AA variant, one with a 35mm Oerlikon KDA, one with a single Bofors gun. The Mohawk Piranha 10x10 has a variant with the 35mm Oerlikon GDD gun, similar to the Type 89 IFV. I think Switzerland has a lot of potential as a German subtree just on the MOAGs alone. The MOAG's Piranha was the root of the AVGP designed by General Motors that evolved to the LAV vehicle series. For aircraft, they mostly used a mix of German 109Es, French MS-406 P-51s, and for the Cold War aircraft, Vampires, the Hunter Squadron vehicle that's already in the German tech tree, Mirage 3, F-5 Tiger II, FA-18C, and FA-18D. So in that case, I think Switzerland is fine just as a tank subtree for Germany. I'm gonna skip USSR because they're definitely grooming the Czechs to be their subtree. We'll probably see some Czech-built Jagdpanzer 38s, Bf-109Gs, the Albatros, and all that. You already have the Praga in game, so if you want information on those vehicles, you could check out the Czechoslovak tech tree on Reddit. The forum one I think disappeared because they switched to the new forums and most of the topics before were not grandfathered. For Great Britain, India is shaping up to be the subtree next after South Africa. After there was a bit of a pushback with the T-90S Bhishma being a British squadron vehicle, only the Vijayanta was added as a premium vehicle this update. India doesn't have a particularly stellar ground vehicle tree, with them starting out with Shermans, some with the SA-50 gun, some with the regular 75mm M3, some PT-76 tanks, Stuarts, and Centurions. At rank 5, they have the T-55 Gulmohar, which is the T-55 with the L7 gun. Top tier isn't any better with the Bhishma, T-72As, maybe a T-80U, and the Arjun. For aircraft, however, India has an edge, starting out with the A-35 Vengeance, Spitfires, Tempests, Hurricanes, and the Vampire in Canberra. But after that, they quickly get out of the British and US mold by acquiring some Ouragans and Mystère aircraft from France. Then the HAL Industries aircraft drop, like the Fallen Nat or HAL Ajit, HAL Marut or Kurt Tank's Last Fighter, a series of MiG-21s and Su-7 BMKs, of which we already have a pre-order skin for the Egyptian Su-7 BMK of the Indian Air Force. The MiG-21 Bison, or the UPG, is quite interesting. It's basically a MiG-21 BIS using the same engine, but internally everything's different. You have helmet-mounted displays, MFDs, the Copio radar, the one on the Su-25T and Su-39, R-77, R-27, R-60M, and R-73 capability. and Cab 500KR capability. It's definitely a rank 8 worthy aircraft. Joining the UPG is the HAL Tejas, but that will be far down in the future when missiles like the Python 5 and ASRAAM are available. India also uses modernized Sepikot Jaguars and Sea Harriers as part of the British part of its modern air force. The Rafale and Mirage 2000H comprise the French part of its air force, and the MiG-29 and Su-30 MKI as the Russian part of its air force. India will be stacked as a tech tree for Britain if it ever gets added. Britain being augmented by French and Russian aircraft through India is a really crazy concept to grasp. And on top of that, imagine if the Lockheed Martin F-21 was also made a premium for Great Britain through India. It's just crazy ideas all around. A strong second candidate for a Great Britain subtree, though, would be Jordan with all their modified British vehicles from the Khalid, which was a Chieftain Mark V over 3P with the Challenger 1's engine. And more recently, they modified their Challenger 1s to take crewless Falcon turrets with a Swiss 120mm Ruag cannon known as the Al Hussein tank. Well, to be clear, the Al Hussein tank is the name for their Challenger 1s. The ones for the Falcon turrets are also called Al Husseins, and they haven't designated a new name for it. Anyways, the problem with Japan is that they don't have expert customers because, well, they don't export vehicles. And I prefer the unified Korean tech tree as a standalone over Korea being a subtree of Japan, which is already a bad idea in its essence. I am really walking back my video on South Korea being a subtree of Japan that I made last year. It's just a bad idea all around. So Japan's gonna have to sit this one out. So we move on to China. If Great Britain has India, China can definitely have Pakistan. Pakistan's modern tank and aircraft fleet is primarily Chinese. The Al-Zarar is a Type 59 that's been modernized to all hell like Egypt's Ramses II tank. The Al-Khalid is a Chinese Type 90-2M, and on top of that, they have ordered the VT-4 tank. Their legacy tanks also include the Type 85, Type 69, and Type 59. It complements the T-80UD and T-55 tanks Pakistan ordered from Ukraine and Serbia respectively. For their modern aircraft, the JF-17 is their primary fighter, backed by the J-10C variant known as the... what? J-10CP? Oh, they renamed it to J-10CE. Whew. Aside from that, they already have the F-16A Block 15 OCU, which is very comparable to the F-16A MLU that China already has in its tech tree, so it can be omitted until at least the F-16A Block 52, and then Taiwan gets the F-16V Block 70. Pakistan allegedly is also capable of firing Magic 2 missiles from their F-16s, so that's interesting if true. Pakistan also has the Mirage 3 and Mirage 5 aircraft, which entered an upgrade program called Project Rose, or retrofit of Strike Element, which gave the Mirage 3 new radar, the Grifo M3, AIM-9L capability, and new RWRs. The Mirage 5F underwent Rose 2 upgrades, which gave it a flare navigation pod, similar to the A7E's LANA pod and new RWRs. However, it could not get the Rose 4 upgrade, so it couldn't get the Grifo 3 radar, and in consequence, it could not have AIM-9L capability the Rose 4 upgrade would give. The Rose 4 upgrade also included chaff and flares for the Mirage 5F, but unfortunately that never flourished. And from China, Pakistan also received F-7PGs and J-6s, or the MiG-21 and the MiG-19. Italy already has Hungary, but if Italy becomes a collection of southeastern European regions, like Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary, it will benefit tremendously. But they're mostly Soviet-made equipment, aside from Iranian vehicles like TR-85, IAR-93 Voltur, and the Maresal. so there's really no point in covering them. Although the Hungarian Leopard 2A4 and 2A7 would give Italy something to work with at top tier. Because God knows the Ariatech can't do 11-7. The Hungarian Lynx and Romanian MLI-84 with spike missiles will give Italy a boost at 10.0 and below. For aircraft, yeah, the Romanian MiG-21s could break the F-104 monotony. The Hungarian Gripens would be very interesting to see across the Italian Eurofighter. Hungary also had MiG-29s, and Bulgaria has the SE-25K, and they have ordered F-16Vs, so Bulgaria would give Italy a boost in the Air Force aspect. Because God knows the AMX is nowhere to be seen. And in the helicopters aspect, the Hungarians bring the Mi-24V and Mi-24P, while the Romanians bring the IAR-330L with Malyutkas, upgradable to the SOCAT with spike missiles. The best candidate for a French subtree would be Greece. Their air forces mostly already overlap since the Mirage F1 CG, Mirage 2000, and Rafale. The only add-ons would be the F4E Phantom, A7E Corsair, and F16. The F4E Peace Icarus 2000 also gave Greece an F4F ICE analog that modernizes everything including its weapons, being able to fire the AIM-9M, AIM-120 AMRAAM-B, and Paveways. This will be in line with the F4F ICE variant in terms of upgrades. For tanks, it introduces the Leopard 1A5, 2A4, 2A6, M60, and M48. They also had a BMP-1A1 from East Germany, which had its ATGM launcher removed. Similar to the PBV 701 from Sweden. I don't remember the name actually, but yes, Sweden had some BMP-1s that didn't have their ATGM launchers. On the same platform, the BMP-1A1, Greece also tested a twin 23mm gun like on the BTR-ZD. Finland and Sweden are already perfect together, so Norway would be the next logical candidate. It really wouldn't benefit the tank line any further between the 2A7NO and the 2A4NO. Adding Norway would make Sweden a really better Germany in every way, even with SPAA, if they had the Shorad ACSB with Iris Cs. For aircraft, it'll give that Tech Tree an F-16, but that's it. Finland already got that covered by having their F-18s. Israel doesn't have many allies in the region, but my choice would be Turkey. Turkey has the Sabre tank in service, which was developed by IMI and manufactured by Roketsan. Adding Turkey for the ground forces would give Israel not only a 10-3 lineup with the Leopard 2A4 TRs and Leopard 2A4s, but also give them light tanks like the ACV-15 with 25mm and the Pars 3. The ACV-15 has a tow missile equipped variant along with a Hellfire missile variant. The Pars 3 has a 25mm gun, but the AV-8 Dempita, developed jointly with Malaysia, can be equipped with a 30mm Denel LCD-30 gun. Turkey unfortunately can't contribute with modern aircraft because they're very similar to Israel. F-4s, F-16s, even the F-4 Terminator 2020 was patterned off the Kurnas 2000 upgrade, except instead of Python 3s, it retains the Sparrow capability of the F-4E. Ground attack weapons are similar, using the Pave Spike and Pave Spike Pod with AGM-65D Mavericks and GBU-10 and 12 Paveway bombs. The Terminator also has the AGM-88 Harm capability. Now, I'm not saying all of this should be the sub-tech tree for each nation, or that each nation actually needs a sub-tech tree. All I'm saying is that these nations have a possibility to be represented by the game this way. Like North Korea with the Shenyang F5, Pakistan with the A5C, Norway with the Leopard 1A5NO, and so on. Even if we didn't force tech trees, singular vehicles could represent countries like Singapore and the Philippines under the Israeli banner with the Singaporean Hunter IFV with Spike LRs, and the Sabra Ascod light tank respectively. Of course, vehicles aren't the only way to represent countries in-game. Like Turkey, their F5 and Leopards are also represented by special camouflages in certain packs. The same could be done for countries like Thailand and their Type 69 tanks. And it's thanks to the tireless work of people on the War Thunder Live website that user skins for unrepresented nations are available. Anyways, I'm just throwing these stuff out there. War Thunder will invariably choose what they want to add in the end, and it may or may not follow these patterns. All we can really do is wait and see. With the economy improving and aircraft getting stock countermeasures and tanks getting stock FPE, there's a renewed optimism in grinding out these vehicles to be enjoyed by everyone. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and as always, this is the Dr. MD. Godspeed.